I did, didn't I?
No.
Welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Student DNA kits, they're being offered in Texas. We're going to debate that for a little bit. Mandatory military service in South Korea could cost the country billions of dollars. And then fans in the booze. When should you boo? When should you not boo? I think it's a fair discussion to have. We're going to talk about all of that on today's Midday Show. Mark, how you feeling today?
I'm good. Did I ever tell you my favorite booing story of all time?
No. Do you want to save it or do you want to go right to it? It's your call.
Let's do it right now because it's fun.
Yeah,
and it's
go
quick.
for it.
I'm at a Penn State men's basketball game.
Okay.
And you've been to Penn State men's games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of times at like TV timeouts or media timeouts, whatever, they do stupid little stuff to be fun. And one time they went out and they did musical chairs. And they had 3 kids who, I don't know how they selected these kids, but these kids go out on the court and they had 2 inflatable like chairs you could buy in the bookstore, the Penn State things. Mm-hmm. So 3 kids, 2 chairs. We're doing a quick round of musical chair. And like the winner got a $50 gift card to the bookstore, or something far from a laugh.
Yeah.
Well, it's like 12-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl, or 2 12-year-old boys, and a girl who was like half their size.
Okay. So
as an adult, and I'm watching this, I'm like, this is going to be interesting. So they do the first round, music stops, boy sits down, girl sits down, one of the boys is out.
Okay.
And I said to myself, if this boy doesn't let this girl win, it could get ugly.
How different were the ages?
From sitting where you could tell, they were all kids,
okay,
but she was like half his size.
Okay.
Music starts, they're going around again, music stops, boy plops down in the chair. Boo! I'm telling you, 7,000 people booed this 12-year-old kid, over a $50 gift card. And I was like, I could see it coming. It was awesome.
Were you booing?
No, I was laughing because I was like, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it. Could you imagine? He's so pumped. No. He's like, because he got picked and he gets to go out on the floor and he wants to win. And then it was the loudest the gym was the whole day.
Sure.
Booing this 12-year-old.
I have a couple of like do's or don'ts for you that I think you'll really, really enjoy. Everything's good though. You had a good night. Everything's gone fine.
Well, Yankees didn't get eliminated.
No, so that's what time is the game today?
4.
Okay.
I'll tell you this is how bad the Denver Broncos are, by the way. I had some work to do, so I went to the real estate office and I was doing stuff. I checked the Yankee game, still rain delay. I do some more stuff, check the Yankee game, so whatever. It gets postponed. And then I was like, all right, well, now what am I going to do for the rest of the night? I go, I sat down, I'm flipping through the channels. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a Monday Night Football game on tonight. But because the Broncos are so bad that it just didn't even, I knew going into today, thank God there's not a football game that I care about, so I can just focus on the baseball game.
Yeah.
And then I'd so ingrained the football game that it was terrible, I even forgot it was on. So there you go.
I wanted to talk to you about, I had 2 things when I came in today. I said, I think they're pretty interesting. They're not deep necessarily in like the story, but I think the conversations around them can be. There is a Texas school district outside of Houston that is distributing kits to have students' DNA samples in case of emergencies like Uvalde, Texas. The Texas public school systems are set to distribute the DNA and fingerprint identification kits for K through 8 students. It will only be used by the parents who wish to participate. So this isn't something that's being forced upon them or anything like that. However, eerie is the wrong word, but I do find this, have you ever been asked for your DNA?
No.
Ever?
No.
I don't think I've ever been asked for a DNA sample. I don't think I've ever been asked, would you like your DNA to be collected? I don't know.
What about in all your paternity tests?
No, they all came back negative.
You are not the father.
Would you, if you would have been offered this, you're a father of 3.
I don't know.
If you would have been offered this when they were in K through, because now they're out of the K through 8, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If they would have been offered this K through 8, what would have happened? How would you think you would have responded?
It almost seems like, I mean, I think from a broader scope in society, with what they can do with DNA and crimes and things like that, you would think that in the hospital at birth, they should just, take a DNA sample of every person and have it on record so they can help solve these crimes. I remember the first time I got.
Do you think that's a little spooky too, though? Or
I mean,
really?
It is, but if your argument on the other side of it is, I don't want to give my DNA in case I go to a life of crime, that's kind of a tough argument.
So you would be pro like a giant registry of some sort?
Yes.
Interesting.
I remember
now we're going down a different path. But
when I got my first teaching job in the state of Maryland, and I went in, I had to do all the stuff. I had to be fingerprinted.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can remember thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever been fingerprinted before. Maybe this is a bad idea. If life goes awry and I need to go to a life of crime, I don't know if my fingerprints are on record anywhere.
Right.
Now, of course, I don't think. Yeah, I've seen the movies. You can fix that.
Yeah.
I don't expect to go to a life of crime, and I didn't. So, but while they were rolling my finger, I was like, "This. I don't think I've ever had this done before." So I don't know. It would be. I would almost think that it's so morbid to ask, like, we're requesting your kid's DNA in case they ever have to identify the remains. Is that basically what we're getting to?
That's the majority. So the Houston Chronicle wrote a piece, and that is the essential. The piece behind this, the number one cause to use this would be identification.
I think it's so morbid that I think people just don't want to think about it. And they're like, if you had to do it, you had to do it. If you don't have to do it. But to give parents a time and say, honey, let's sit down and discuss this. If Junior is in a tragedy to the point that he's, who wants to talk about that? So I don't think.
I think it comes down to, like, to me, like, this is going to sound weird because DNA has never mattered in my life. Like, in my personal life, DNA has never been an important aspect of it. However, I do feel like there's something really personal about it. It is kind of like, you're given, well, think of it this way. Like, remember how important your social security number used to be? And I'm not saying it still isn't, but like, it certainly has lost some of its luster. But that, like, the
implying that a social security number once upon a time had luster.
Those 9-digit numbers was like, this is, and you kept it in your lockbox, and it was like, that was the thing that separated you from somebody else. And I'm just saying, like, DNA is really like the one interpersonal thing that is truly yours and only yours. And I don't know, like, the idea of it going on a registry, I'm not like, I don't think I'm one of these like conspiracy, like, oh, once the government has your DNA, and it's like, I don't think it's that. I think it's just a matter of, it's like turning something over. It's like people who struggle wrapping their head around putting their credit card online or putting their social security on a form. Like, I think that's me right now. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea of another facility, like having my DNA. Like, I don't know if I would trust a school to have my credit card, let alone like my kid's DNA. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I think people haven't wrapped their head around yet. And this feels like something, it feels like they're really casting their line out far to solve something that, God forbid, would ever happen.
Agreed. You know what they call people who are afraid to shop online with a credit card?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear this.
Old people.
Do you? But I feel like that's getting less and less.
Well, it is. But there's no like 22-year-old out there that's like, I'm not putting my credit card. I'm not buying anything on Amazon.
That's true.
None. Zero.
So then why does DNA bother me so much?
I mean, you say it's personal. Like, it is, but it's not like you had to pick it. Like, you did nothing. It's just, it's like, is your fingerprint personal? Well, yes, but what? Like, you have one, I have one. It doesn't. So I don't, it's not like a favorite preference. It's not like it could be anything embarrassing. Like, oh, did you see Jeff's DNA?
No.
Woo! That looked funny.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's the part though, is like I get what you're saying, and yet for some reason I still can't wrap my head around the idea of an organization, like a public institution, just having my DNA.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I can't see that a bunch of, suits sat in a room and are like, this is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And this is good. People are going to rally around this. And this is really going to help.
And we should mention again, they're not forcing it. Like
they're not forcing it.
For anybody that jumped into the conversation, they're not forcing it. It's not, the parents have the choice of whether or not they want their students. I would be curious if you surveyed parents around the area, how many around this area would have said, yep, here it is, and how many would have said, no, thank you. Which way? Which way do you think the majority would have fallen?
I think it's no thank you.
Okay.
I think if you surveyed everyone and like starting now, we are going to DNA every kid that is born in a hospital.
Okay.
For the purposes of safety of future society to help solve crimes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you come out and say, no, I don't want to do that. I want my kid to be able to commit crimes.
No, I see what you're saying. So what you're so just so I understand, you're implying that to say no to it is to basically imply that you would be worried that somehow it's going to come back to bite you.
Yes.
And if you're going to be a model citizen, why would it ever come back to bite you? I think
I don't even think you need to be a model citizen to.
I think this comes back to your and I's conversation about how I feel like the younger you are, the less faith you have in the government. So for me, it's not so much the personal decision of like me doing something wrong. To me, it's like, do I really trust the school to like handle this correctly?
Well, and I can see that too.
And if there was like a overall registry, like, do I really trust the government to like, so it's weird how we're both looking at it from a different, you're looking at it from the personal perspective of like, why would I ever do anything wrong?
No, that's
and
fair.
I'm looking at it kind of like, I'm not so
You're the
much worried
conspiracy
about me.
theorist. Everything's a conspiracy.
I don't think so, but I get your point. Like, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I really like, I feel like only bad things could happen. Like, nothing, what
That's
good
it.
What good is going to come from them having it, I guess, would be like my other argument. Like on a day-to-day basis, what good could possibly happen
I don't know.
from these organizations
a
having
murdered
DNA?
girl, they find DNA under her fingertips as she fought back against her attacker, and the DNA's on file, and they're like, oh, we know who did
but
it.
not my DNA.
Well,
unless
you were the attacker.
I get the analogy, like the story you're using, but again, like it's not my DNA they're trying to match. Right? Because you and I agree. Like, I'm not trying to, like, this is the concept here is that we're model citizens.
As of now, well, we are because we're almost Emmy-nominated. But
that's right.
Once the show gets canceled, as every show does, even the Emmy-nominated ones, and we have to go, and have to scrap for a living.
So last thing, you get the letter in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
You would have said,
as mature and as intelligent as this sounds as a parent, I would have texted the other people and it's like, what are you doing about this?
Okay.
And I would have, I don't know.
I think it's a no thank you for me, only because, not so much because of the DNA, but because of like the case used to me seems so in left field.
I agree.
Like the thing that it could ever benefit me seems like, God forbid it would ever happen.
Right. Is it really a benefit?
And statistically, the odds of it happening, like they're just not very high. And so I think because of that, I'm just saying like, no thanks.
And that's what I agree with. The more, like you said, the odds of it benefiting you. So if it benefits you in their system, it's when your kid is unrecognizable. And so that it's so morbid that I'm with you. I don't think people do.
Let's change it up a little bit. Let's go with the Genetti windows on 4th. They're open. The windows might be shut, but the bar, the kitchen is open. Be sure to go to the Genetti windows on 4th this winter. They'll have the holiday decorations up. It's really neat. It's very timely, very classical. Very, very nice place to eat, especially as it gets colder outside. How's that?
Good. High ceiling lobbies, big tree, and pet friendly.
Yeah.
Always pet friendly. If you're traveling for the holidays, you can bring your pet. Or not if you're traveling because you live here, when people are traveling to see you.
There you go. I don't know what you're going to say about this one. So this one, I kind of had a feeling what you were going to say about the Texas DNA. I didn't know what you were going to say about this. So South Korea, for anybody who doesn't know, BTS is essentially the Beatles of like 2022. They have to perform military service. So everybody in South Korea at some point, every young male has to go and perform their military duty. Make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
So South Korea has come out recently and said that if the members are set to serve in the South Korean military, there would be no tours or music for several years. I guess the years is dependent on your service and what you do.
Okay.
For some people it's shorter, for some people it's longer. There is this idea being floated around right now within the South Korean government that they are going to lose out on billions of dollars over the next several years if they are unable to perform, tour, create new music, basically promote their band, what it would do to their local economy, what it would do to their foreign, like what's coming in to the country, all those things. I find the decision fascinating. 50% of me is completely on board this morning. I was like, they have to serve. Like you can't, if they don't serve, it almost defeats the whole purpose of the system. And I'm not saying South Korea's system is perfect, but like when you have this in place and there's a concept that everybody's doing it, like you have to have these dudes serve. The other 50% of me also says, though, if you're bringing in billions of dollars into the economy, are you yourself not already serving? Are you already not benefiting your country enough? And I think the conversation is incredibly fascinating, and I don't know which side I fall on.
I am strongly on one side.
Really? I would love to hear this.
Strongly. I don't make them serve.
You don't make them serve.
I'm with you. They are benefiting the country way more, exponentially more than they ever could in military service. I understand the aspect of you're afraid you're opening a can of worms that now others can get out of it, where if no one can get out of it, do we want to let these people get out of it? But I think you can make an exception that says, and you can write into law, if you have sold however many albums and if you have this many, downloads and whatever, then you can get out of it.
So before I give you my rebuttal, it is estimated by Fortune magazine that BTS contributes more than $3.5 billion to the South Korean economy every year. That is the equivalent to the contribution of 26 mid-sized companies. This was done by the Hyundai Research Institute in 2018. So essentially, the South Korean government sending these 7, I believe it's 7. I'm not a BTS fanatic. I believe it's 7
Don't
guys.
pretend you don't know. You
really
can name them all.
I honestly cannot name a BTS song. Like it's one of the few gaps like in boy band music that I have. However, if they send these 7 people to go serve, you're essentially shutting down 25 companies in your country. Just like with a snap of a finger.
It just doesn't.
So here's my rebuttal.
It doesn't make sense.
So here's my rebuttal to you. I would have an easier time coming over to your side because I'm on the fence with this. I would have an easier time coming to your side if every other young male, if the duty they were performing was not like life-threatening. Like if they had to do like civic service, if they were like picking up litter, if they were like doing cleaning projects, if they were doing things that were not life-threatening, I would be like, yeah, like that's fine. Like they're already doing it. They're bringing in all this money, all this stuff. Because it's a military service, there is, and you just never know. Like you just don't know. Doesn't it weigh on you that you're telling somebody that them bringing in the money they're bringing in is worth more than your individual life? No? That doesn't like...
Well, I think if they thought it really came down, if life was like a coin flip. But you serve in the military for the good of your country. They are doing way more for the good of their country than most of the other normal Joe Schmoes in their country. So I don't...
So let me ask you this then, because I find this fascinating. What's the number then? Because what if there's...
That's a good question.
What if there's some female pianist who's bringing in 500,000 to the economy.
Not even close.
Like, what is no? So this
Go
is,
serve.
So this is the point I'm making is like, what is if they were only bringing in $10 million? Do they serve? Like, what is?
And
the
that's
line?
what they would have to make a line, and they would make it so close to the BTS line. Like, yeah, if your band brings in $2.5 billion a year to the good, you're exempt. Go create a band that brings in $2.5 billion.
I will say this: it would be, if they did that, it would be an incredible motivator for young entrepreneurs, young artists, young whatever, to promote their economy and to try to go and figure it out. It's an
I just see it as impossible. Like it's like,
well, it depends what the number is. I think that's why I asked you, what do you think that number should be? Because there has to be some crypto whatever, right? I mean, there has to be. There has to be some kid in South Korea who, without grabbing a microphone, has figured out how to bring in $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion into South Korea's economy. He just doesn't have a microphone and isn't like world famous. So like, is he exempt? Like, where is the line? Like, how do you decide? That is why I'm so on the fence of this, because it seems so simple. Like, yes, you have to have this money in the economy. You can't just pull the plug on it.
I get that. I think there's also a social, emotional attachment to if some unknown that just kind of was silently rich, like one of those people. Right. If something happened to that person, the overall mood and I don't want to say depression of, but there would be a link if this band went into military service and some of them were killed. Like if Elvis had been killed when he served in there would have been fallout, whether it be it would have lingered over a certain generation of America.
I mean, I understand that Elvis's service, I'm not taking anything away from Elvis's service, but it was very clearly
orchestrated.
Yes. Do you think people would have looked differently of Elvis had if America would have said he's too important to the economy, he cannot serve? Like, how do you think people would have looked at Elvis or would have looked at the country if that statement would have been made?
That's a good question too, because then the follow-up is, like, I know Prince William served, but I'm also sure Prince William was never really put in harm's way.
Well, right now it looks like they're going to serve. Like, that's what they have announced it. Like, it is heading that direction.
So the question then too is, if you're going to put them in and protect them, if you're like, yeah, you're going to serve and you're going to push papers in an office, then what's the point? But if you're going to put them in and put them in harm's way, there is I don't know. I think.
I guess this is what I would say without knowing all the historical context. America saw value in making sure Elvis went, even though it was very orchestrated.
But when you watch the movie, and this is what I learned from it,
I get it.
There was a lot of northern white America that didn't like Elvis because he was a Southerner who sang black music.
I get it.
Which is fascinating now that we look back and hear black music, or we hear Elvis and we think of R&B because it just sounds like Elvis. But at the time, his influences were Southern gospel and R&B, and so I don't know.
So you would say no serve. They're already doing.
I would say it's better for our country for these guys to keep singing and touring and bringing money in, because we're in their way. They're stealing money from outside of of South Korea. Yeah, because these guys are making money all over the world.
It's so weird because I think I agree with everything that you're saying. I just don't know how you would not. I don't know how you don't lose the young men in the rest of the country. And when I say lose, like, I'm not implying they're going to riot or like anything like that, but they're certainly not going to forget that. They are going, like, I would imagine young Americans at the time it was easier for them to accept the fact they had to go or accept their role, knowing that people like Elvis also had to go, even though they knew it was orchestrated, even though just knowing that he had to go had to make it easier for other people.
What's it called? I keep wanting to call him BTO, which is Bachman Turner Overdrive. BTS.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think all the young men of South Korea know that the world is just different. Like they have to go serve, and BTS doesn't. Just like they know that if BTS came and hit on their girlfriend, the girlfriend would dump them and go with the BTS guys and leave these guys behind. So their world is just different than BTS, and they know it. Just like everyone in England knew they weren't the Beatles, they weren't the Rolling Stones. Like you weren't in, growing up. Why did NSYNC get treated differently than you? Because you weren't in NSYNC.
And everyday life, yes. Military service, mandatory military service, or a draft is very, because again, like I said, if it was a civic duty, if we were picking up litter, cleaning up windows, like picking up our society, like all that stuff, cleaning up the community, they're already putting money into the community before they don't have to do it. But because it's military and you just never know, you just don't know what's going to happen to your life when you join the military. Like I know, like we don't like to think that way, but there were people who joined the military in 2001 and never thought that they would end up in the Middle East, in 2002, and it happens. And so I don't know. I'm very, very interested in this. I'm curious to see how it goes.
I think too, though, to take it further, when you think of people's roles in the military, you've seen Good Morning Vietnam, which is based on a true story about a guy who his real contribution was not as a soldier. It was as a DJ who entertained the troops while they were in Vietnam. I just read this the other day. Don Knotts, Don Knotts from he's from Mayberry, and then he was in Three's Company. He started out he was a military enlistee, and he didn't come from a great home life, I don't think, and he had learned to be funny was one of the things, and they realized, and he went around and entertained the troops as like a comedian. And so there are those values to people in the service. I remember when I was in high school, there was a rock band. There was the Army band came and played at our high school as part of a recruiting thing.
Right.
And
what a recruiting tool that could be for South Korea.
There you go. There you go. So there are other ways that of real military personnel who serve that aren't carrying a rifle.
It'll be very, very interesting.
No, it is. It is a fascinating.
Yes, it is. Not as fascinating as checking your grocery rewards, gas rewards, and now your Thanksgiving rewards with Weis Markets. Make sure you start earning that turkey. Probably not quite out of time, but if you're going to try to earn that turkey for Thanksgiving, you probably need to start sooner rather than later. Be sure to go to Weis Markets here shortly for all your grocery needs.
What if you can earn half a turkey?
A turkey leg.
That's not half.
I know. Thank you. Any other anatomy lessons? Any other anatomy lessons on the turkey?
I'm explaining poultry to you because that's what I do.
That I may need. You brought up an interesting post about fans and booing, and I actually have a couple of questions I wrote down here for you because I think it's an interesting topic.
I saw this tweet.
Yeah.
I think it's Mike Trout.
Okay.
I'm not positive because it says Nugget Chef. And then it's at J Hey Kid, which is a play off the Say Hey Kid, and
thank you for giving them credit.
So anyway, and it said because Aaron Judge has had a struggle through the postseason a little bit. He did hit a home run. He's hit a home run, but he has not been stellar. And this quote says, "If I hit 62 home runs and won MVP, carrying my team to a division title and 99 wins, and I got booed because of a 3-game, quote, slump, I'd sign somewhere else so fast, and I don't care how petty that is. It's not as petty as booing the guy who broke Maris's record."
It's interesting. There's so many things here. Here's going to be one of the biggest differences in this argument is that I think the fans I tend to think the fans matter more than you do, not in a negative or positive way. But when we've had these discussions before, I always think the fans are really the only reason these guys are able to do what they're able to do. Like, the only reason you get to hit a ball is because other people care. That's the only reason.
And the only reason BTS is going to get to avoid their military service is because of their fans. But the fans aren't buying their music to keep them out of military service. The fans are buying their music because they want to hear the music.
I get it. Here's the leaving part is interesting. I think it's all about context. I think because it's the Yankees, highest payroll, the greatest history, all of these things, there is an expectation and understanding that just jumps what maybe the other 29, 30, 31 stadiums would boo. And so I think, I'm trying to think how I want to say this. I guess, am I surprised that Yankee fans would boo somebody who was unsuccessful in October? No, I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
How many fan bases do you think are in a position to do what the Yankee fans did?
To boo?
Where they've seen so much history and so much tradition and so much success that to see somebody fail like that in October, merit is too strong of a word, but I'm sitting here almost justifying it. I feel like they're the only one.
No, I get it. And in relationship, I'm sure once he got off the field and he was like, whatever, he's more pissed that he's struggling than anything else. But there's an aspect where it's like in relationships where someone says something to the other person and they're like, okay, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And the person's like, wait a minute, you can't break up with me over that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yes, I can. You know, you called me stupid, you called me ugly, you called me fat, you called me whatever you wanted to call me, and I'm not putting up with it. And if that's what you think, then I'm done. And then it's hard for the person to turn around and say, well, like you said it, you own it. So if he looks at the fans and is like, listen, I'm going somewhere else because you booed me. Now, in the hindsight, there'll be however many million Yankee fans are there and how many people are actually in attendance that booed. But still, if he's like, hey, if I'm not good enough, if I'm worthy of being booed, then all right, I'll go be a Met.
So and again, I knew this would be good because I always end up being more pro fan than you. To broaden the conversation, though, he hit 62 home runs.
Yep.
Correct? Total?
Yes.
I would be willing to venture that for all 62 home runs, the fans went nuts.
Of course they did.
Okay, so this isn't a situation where it's like when he's successful, they don't respond astronomically more impressed than what they probably should.
But they do with everybody.
Okay, but that's the point I'm getting to. Is there no sense with fandom where if we're going to cheer excessively when these people are successful, we are not allowed to voice displeasure when it feels as if they came up short, especially when you are the best player. Is he the highest paid player on the Yankees?
Not yet.
Not yet, but he's going.
Give it a minute.
Yeah. I think sometimes fans are held to these weird standards, but then we don't want to give them any credit for anything. If you're the only reason these guys get to show up and do the thing they love to do, like your ticket prices, your TV ratings, all of these things that fans allow these people to get to play a game for the rest of their life. But then when they don't succeed or when they don't reach expectation, you're just supposed to it's okay. Like, I don't know. Like, I think I just don't agree with that. I think that's part of it. I think if you're going to hit 62 home runs and get to do that, and everyone goes nuts for you every time you hit 62 home runs, if you don't show up in October for the Yankees, you're probably going to get booed, and you probably need to be okay with that.
So if in a playoff loss, if the New England Patriots had booed Tom Brady, do you think that's justifiable? Or do you think there's a point where you're just like, you know what?
Well, how early? Like early in Tom Brady's career, like Aaron Judge, or like late in Tom Brady's career, like 10 years from now, Aaron Judge? Like, listen, if the Cardinals went out and booed
the greatest season in Yankee history,
this is what I'm saying. If the Cardinals went out and booed Pujols this year in the playoffs, maybe you and I are looking at each other like, boy, he's given a lot to the
Maybe?
organization.
Like there has to be a point you're on boom.
Sarcasm. Okay?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Okay. So I'm just saying, I do understand what you're saying when you put it in but you just used like Brady and I'm using Pujols, and you're trying to act as if Aaron Judge has like won multiple World Series and he's like, I don't know. Like, I'm not against them booing in October.
He hasn't won multiple World Series, but he had more home runs than any player in American League history.
But when you're the
American League history.
But here's the funny thing, though. Like, this is why we're talking about the Yankees in this context of, like, this is one of the few organizations where I think this is the point I would be making. Like, for the Yankees, it's like Yankees is rings. Like, they don't, like, no one goes up to the Red Sox and goes like, we had the best individual season. They go, no. They go, no, we have this many rings. And so
I
were
get
you
that.
Successful in October, weren't you?
Okay, so then let me ask you this.
Okay.
Judge signs with the Mets.
Okay.
If you're a Yankee fan, do you feel betrayed?
Do you feel betrayed if Judge signs with the Mets? That's interesting because it's New York to New York. There's
he signs anywhere.
Dynamic.
He signs with the Angels. He signs with the Cubs. He leaves.
Listen, if he signs in the Angels, no, because we're just going to go sign somebody else. We're the Yankees. You don't think so? You don't think that's how the Yankees operate?
No, I think.
Oh, come on.
No, they've never lost. This has been discussed by Jerry and I. They've never lost a superstar in the prime of their career.
Okay. Well, welcome to everybody else in the league.
Like, no, but I get it. But if you're saying if on December 8th, Judge signs with the Cubs, the Yankee fans are going to say, but there's no way. It is going to be talk for months.
I know, but think about the logic that you just went to. Yankees fans shouldn't boo somebody who wasn't successful in October because of something that has never happened before.
Game.
Because something that has never happened before that Yankee fans can't relate to.
Wait,
Yankee fans can't relate to the idea of someone in their prime leaving and going somewhere else. So because of that, they shouldn't boo somebody who came up short in October.
Understand this.
Even though they cheered for every excessive thing that he did all season long.
Hold on. Understand this. Mm-hmm. For this guy who's failed in October, I'm trying to pull up his stats. He is they played 4 games and he has homered. So it's not like he is, he went he started out incredibly cold. And so
let's flip it. When should they boo? Let's flip it then. When should fans boo? What is a justifiable boo for the fans? When should the fans be allowed to boo Aaron Judge?
It is a fair question. On the flip side of it, when should
I just flipped it? We're not ready to flip
it.
Well,
when should Aaron Judge be allowed to be like, screw you? You like I hit 62 home runs. Don't boo
me. Is he going to say that?
He might.
Why would you though? They just cheered for the 62 you hit.
Well, of course they cheered for the 62. So they cheer for everybody's home run.
But you don't think like in life. You don't think of it like because you're a parent. Like in life, when your kids do something right, you reward them, you cheer them on, you're like excited for them, you say good job.
Right.
Now imagine if whenever they did something wrong, you just weren't supposed to, you're not allowed to reprimand them. You're not allowed
to there's a difference between saying, oh, Judge he's struggling and saying, boo!
You never yelled at your kids. You never yelled at your kids?
I have one kid that I've never yelled at.
Kids.
I have one kid that I've yelled at a lot.
Okay.
And I have another kid I've yelled at like twice.
Imagine now if when you yelled at that kid, they were like, don't yell at that kid. Like that kid, look at all the things that kid did. You don't yell at that kid. That's what I'm saying is like has to be there. I'm not saying that every time Aaron Judge like sneezes, people should boo him. What I'm saying though is there has to be a balance of like if we're going to cheer and award him every time he does something great, if he has a small slump, if he's not successful in October, I don't think it's the end of the world if we boo him. I don't.
Well,
you got to have a little bit of thick skin.
I know.
You got it.
I'm not saying. All I'm saying is if you're Aaron Judge,
if you don't feel appreciated, there's the door. Like,
exactly.
What do you want me to say?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And so say my kid goes to
college. I can tell you this: your 60-second home run isn't going to be put on every TV if you leave the door.
Sure, they will.
No,
Barry Bonds was. The McGuire Sosa chase was. All of them were.
Those were different because those were real chases. They were actually trying to.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I know. Oh, the American League record doesn't matter.
It doesn't. We've been over it.
Whatever. And even though I don't totally disagree with you.
We've been over this.
All right. He is 2 for 16 with 9 punch outs. And he did hit a home run. Jose Altuve's 0 for 16 as an Astro. And Jose, now he cheated like a banshee, apparently, allegedly. But so like he's been a World Series star for them. He's been a playoff star. He's 0 for 16 this year. Should they boo Jose Altuve?
Well, again, that's why I think the Yankee context here is important. I really do. That was one of the first defenses that I made. The Braves, Max got fried in the first. That was no pun intended. Got absolutely fried in Game 1 against the Phillies, right? Right. And when he came off, like the Braves fans were clapping, trying to get, because they knew we might need him Game 4, Game 5, right? Now, in context, if that might have been Game 4, Game 5, he's walking off. Do the fans cheer him and clap him up? Probably not. Like the boo birds may have come out a little bit. So like, it's all context. It's all,
Listen, I'm not saying that it's not common. I'm not saying that fans don't do it. I'm just saying don't come home and tell your girl, especially like okay, so go back to being a parent. I have 2 kids in college. If my kid gets a 4.0, a 4.0, a 4.0, a 4.0, and then first semester junior year comes home and gets a C in some class.
Oh, no, but this isn't I think, see, that's where we're different. This isn't a C. On the standard of Aaron Judge, this was not a C.
Well,
what did he go? 2 for 16?
2 for 16.
People
go 2 for 16 all the time. He's got a homer. He's
Aaron Judge. Not everybody gets cheered for 62 home runs. Like that's the point we're making here.
But if you homer 1 out of every 4 games, you hit 40 home runs on a season.
Before you continue this argument, you have to admit it's not a C. This is your kid coming home and just didn't basically all but failed for the semester. Like it was 4.04, 4.0, and then out of the blue, they decided to go get drunk every night and came home that semester and said, "Yeah, I didn't go to class."
No, it's not like that.
If Aaron Judge didn't show up to that series, would anyone have noticed?
They played 4 games. He scored 3 runs.
Okay.
He's almost scored a run a game.
Okay.
Like it's not like he's been non-existent.
Okay.
He struck out a bunch.
He was 2 for 16. He was 2 for 16.
But he scored 3 runs.
So your kid was still on campus. People saw that they were alive, right? But this was not a C. This is not like you came home and it was like a bad bump in the.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Say it's a D.
Okay.
We'll agree with that. So say it's, well, you might not agree. I can't tell you what you'll agree. Say the kid gets a D. And it is.
But it's not
straight
a D.
A.
It's an overall D.
But
because you use
GPAs. Straight A's.
4.0, 4.0, 4.0.
Well, and then
it's like and then it's like a 1.0.
Well.
Yes, that's what this was.
I disagree with that.
And when your kid would come home, you would not just
be like, if my kid came home with 1D,
you would not just be like, we'll get him. Like,
if my kid came home with 1D, I would say, so what was it hard? Like, what happened?
Listen, as someone who was that kid, I can assure you that the speech was not like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing and we'll get them next.
Well, no, there's a conversation,
Exactly.
But the conversation doesn't start with you stupid mofo.
But for fans, that is the conversation. The fan is you're either raucous and cheering or you're loud and booing.
There's a lot of middle ground. There's a lot of middle ground.
If you're a fan, that's how you voice your displeasure. What you can't have a conversation with them.
But you don't like stadiums go quiet. Like when teams are struggling, lots of times stadiums go quiet. Stadiums don't always boo when the team's struggling. Mm-hmm. They're just so it depends. In Philadelphia, they always boo. Mm-hmm. In some places, they don't boo very much. Mm-hmm. They just kind of go quiet. There are multiple reactions.
So you think it was completely unjustified?
I think it was risky to tell your straight A student that they're dumb when they got a C or D or whatever it was. Because obviously at the end of the day, they're still going to graduate with a 3.8 something or whatever. They're still obviously very smart and very successful and you're going to be really mad if they stay mad at you. And just because in the moment you were mad at Judge because he's struggling, don't think for a second that the Mets wouldn't love to have him struggle on their team.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right.
I wish my kids said that more.
The Yankees, you just said to me how the Yankees have never lost someone in their prime.
They never have.
And now they're supposed to be worried about it.
Well, that's why Jerry and Aaron, who are big Yankee fans, and I was just like, listen, the Mets have a lot of money. The Mets are, and I even said, too, it depends what the Mets do in the postseason and if the Mets bow early and if if the Yankees lose tonight, and Judge becomes the villain, if he becomes the scapegoat, that doesn't help.
Let's wrap it up with some comments. Speaking of getting booed, boo buckets are back. Yes, have you heard about this?
I don't know
the McDonald's like lunch pails,
Oh!
the Happy Meal pails.
Nice.
I think today is the first day for them. I used to have all 3 when I was a kid.
Nice.
Did you have? No, your kids didn't have them.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's okay. Yankee fans booed Babe Ruth when the Giants swept them back in 1922. They're more than allowed to boo Judge.
Did they boo Babe Ruth when he was a pending free agent?
It's a good question. I don't know. Was free agency like?
No, it didn't come around till the 70s.
No, there you go. That's
when
why.
you
That's
when
why.
When you and your girlfriend are on shaky ground, this is not the time to boo her.
One more from Tastes Like Good. I feel like if you take a poll of fans, a majority of them would prefer postseason success over breaking.
Well, I agree with that, but it's not like the guy's not trying, and it's not like it's easy, and it's so I don't know. It's
Deb Everett, whoever this is. Hi guys, have a good day and a great week. What a lovely lady. Lovely lady.
I wonder did
Janetti, iconic. Here's what's funny. We should put BTS in our headline every day because we get some new people watching if you put BTS in your headline. The BTS fans are like, imagine the Beatles fans like notched up. Yeah, so maybe we just need to talk about BTS. Maybe it should just be a BTS fan.
There we go. Maybe we'll just do BTS shows. I bet there aren't hundreds of those. That was one of the best parts I thought of the Elvis movie, the way they captured the craziness of the teenage girls.
We had talked about that.
I mean, you could see it in their eyes, like those scenes.
Yeah, you could feel
were done. You could feel it. Yes, very well said.
It was really well done. Pat Kennedy, Texas Governor Abbott has got to go. We need Beto. Interesting.
What happened? I don't know.
Nothing. It's just the Texas Governor Abbott. People. Last I read, they're like Beto's making a push. I mean, it's hard to imagine like a Democrat ever actually winning in Texas, but
is that? I have to ask this. And this
go ahead.
Is Beto short for something?
No, I think it's his last name.
No, isn't it Beto O'Rourke or Beto O'Rourke? I thought his last name was O'Rourke.
We'll look it up real quick just to be sure. Beto O'Rourke. You can donate to him. That's the first thing that comes up. Donate to Beto.
No kidding.
O'Rourke.
Like really?
Donate 25. Donate 50. Donate 1,000. Donate 2.
Where do you come up with the name Beto?
I don't know. You know what the news?
Because O'Rourke's not it's a. I don't want to say it's common, but it's not. It's not some totally bizarre foreign name that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah. No, it's just hard. I mean, it doesn't matter who the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate in Texas is right now. It's just hard to imagine. Governor would be very difficult to win in Texas as a Democrat.
I think governor would be a very tough job in Texas.
And it would be almost impossible. Texas is really the other thing that people don't realize. I've heard people compare Pennsylvania and Texas because Pennsylvania, you have like Philadelphia and you have Pittsburgh, and then you kind of have outside. And what people don't realize is like Austin, Houston, places like that, way more Democratic support than I think people like envision or how they view those larger cities. And you said the other day, people forget like Houston's top 5 U.S. city, like for population.
I think it's 4. Yeah. I think it's behind Chicago.
Yes, and there's just way more of a Democratic surge in that city now. Austin is incredibly blue. So you have this large state that I think has Republican tendencies, obviously a ton of Republican support, but your larger bases, your cities are becoming more and more blue as time goes on. And so it would be governor in Texas would be incredibly difficult. I agree with that.
And the border issue.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to say it's unsolvable. It's close.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do not.
And it ain't going away.
Do not disagree with that. Here you go. This answers your question. Heather, Beto is a nickname. Stat girl, Heather, Beto is a nickname. His name is Robert.
And they come up with Beto?
Yeah. You don't like Beto?
I don't.
Interesting. There was I don't think I'm putting anyone on blast. There was, one of my girlfriend's sister's name is Landry. She was named after Tom Landry, the Cowboys head coach. So I'm beginning to realize more and more people now are just taking the last names of their favorite people and just making them the first name. I was online the other day, and there was a girl named Aniston.
Shut up.
Yeah, and which is a great name, but obviously, I mean, it had to be named after Jennifer Aniston.
It's
right?
a great name.
It's got to be.
It's a great name if the last name is like one syllable, like Jones or Smith, or if the last name is a bunch of syllables, then, you know.
I see. No, I get what you're saying. I just think Aniston's a great name.
It's not bad.
But it's obvious where it came from.
It's not bad.
So I think what people are starting to do is trying to find these celebrity names and kind of like move the back end of it to the front of theirs, and just interesting.
Wait till you have to come up with baby names.
Jeff. Heather, his family gave him the Spanish nickname Beto, initially to distinguish him from his namesake grandfather. There you go.
You know, there's some names. You remember Fat Lever that played in the NBA?
Yeah.
You know what his real name was?
I do. Derek?
Lafayette.
No, yeah, it was Lafayette.
And the reason he got fat is because his brother. I don't know if it was when he was born and his brother who was like 3, or if when he was like 3 and his little brother. But his baby brother couldn't say Lafayette, and his baby brother just called him Fat because that's all he could say. So the nickname Fat Lever stayed, and then he was good. He was in the league for 10 years probably.
Oh yeah.
And
I have Topps trading cards of Fat Lever.
There are he's not. I can't think of any of the other ones off the top of my head, but there have been nicknames that have arisen because either grandma didn't like the name and grandma just started calling him something else and it stuck, or that the family members couldn't pronounce the name and it just became something shorter. And I'm doing such a good job with this, I can't think of any off the top of my head.
No, but I know what you're referring to.
But yeah, it is. But that was the one that sticks out because his brother couldn't say the name.
Yeah, that's funny. Any other ones you got for us? It's okay if you don't.
Oh, there's another one. There was a guy. It was Johnny. What was his last name? There's a baseball player named Johnny who's it was JHONNY. And they're like, why did you spell it? And the mom's like, I spelled it right, but they spelled it wrong on the birth certificate.
Okay.
But then once they did it, we just kept it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that was, I remember that too, because it just looked, all the letters were there, but there were 2 that were juxtaposed. And then when he made it to the major leagues, they were like, wow, how did they come? It's like, says they just screwed up, and then we just like kept it because whatever. Whether it's JH or JOHN, it's still Johnny. So what do we care?
No, what are you
going to do? Yeah, for whatever that's worth. That's my tidbit for the day.
That was good. What time do the Yankees start?
4:07.
Okay, good luck. You got 3 hours to prep. How are you going to prep?
I got work. I might miss the first couple innings.
Couple laps around the mound.
And this is interesting too, because Houston had the best record. They know the winner's going to Houston.
Sure.
If it was different, and Houston was sitting on a runway waiting somewhere, like, are we going to Cleveland? Or are we staying home? Are we going to New York? That would kind of suck because they do play tomorrow. Then I would
prefer that because Houston deserves no leeway for anything. But
the National League play, the Phillies and the Padres are tonight.
Okay.
So it's one of those very rare because of the rain out and because it was a Game 5 rain out. Okay. We have the NLCS on one, following directly after the division series ender. So it's going to be a unique day. This, I don't ever remember this happening.
Yeah.
That the last game of a series got rained out. And so, yeah, it's unique in that aspect.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. And thank you to Weis Markets for being our title sponsor. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We're going to see you tomorrow.